There he is. There he is. There he is. Whoa, baby. Dang it. All right, buddy. Thanks for the catch. See ya. There he is. Oh, thanks, buddy. There he is. Oh, baby. Woo. Good way to start the morning. There he is. Man, these fish are feeding this morning. There he is. Nice snook, baby. Nice snook. Nice, nice, nice. Thanks, buddy. See ya. That's a good snook. There he is. See you, buddy. Nice red. Thanks, buddy. Nice, buddy. Thanks for the catch, man. It's a little snooky. Thanks, buddy. Whoa, see ya. This is insane.
These are the two lures that I've been using for topwater fishing the past couple of months. The one on the left is a Zara Spook Jr. The one on the right is a MirroOlure surface walker. So the majority of my topwater fishing the past few months has been with a 4,000 size spinning reel, spooled up with 15-pound test braid. The rod is 6 foot 6 inches long. It's a medium action rod. And then I have it attached to a 25-pound test monofilament leader that's about 6 feet long. Now the rod's 6 foot 6. 6 foot long leader. What I usually do is I rig up 2 rods first thing in the morning, brand new leaders, 6 feet long, and both of those 6 foot long leaders will generally last me 2.5 to 3 hours as I continue to cut them off as I catch fish and get rid of frays, or if I get hooked up with a big fish and I get broke off and stuff. And I'll fish those leaders down to where they're about 2.5 feet long, and then when they get any lower than that, I like to cut them off and just completely re-rig them. Now, let's go through the knots that I'm using. I'm using a loop knot attaching the lure to the monofilament line, attaching the braid to the monofilament. I take time to tie an FG knot. I prefer using the FG knot because it's the slimmest knot and it's the strongest knot, you guys, for attaching braided fishing line to monofilament leader line. It goes through the fishing eyes of the rod really easy, and it takes about, literally guys, it takes 3 minutes to tie that knot. Once you practice it and you learn how to tie the knot, it takes 3 minutes. So what I do is before I go fishing, I take time to get my rods pre-rigged up with 6 foot long leaders, and I tie really good FG knots so that I've got a strong knot, and also I have a knot that I'm not irritated with. It's clinking and getting hung up on the eyes of the fishing rod and stuff like that when I'm out there. And I'll put a link up here, you guys. I have a video that shows you 3 knots for attaching monofilament or fluorocarbon to braided fishing line. That was the FG knot, the Uni knot, and also another knot that I use, which it's kind of like a surgeon's loop kind of thing where I go through the line like 4 different times. But yeah, I prefer to use the FG knot, you guys, when I'm topwater fishing. And then the other thing, let's talk about that loop knot. I have got a nice lure here that I purchased for tarpon fishing the other day. I've got some 80-pound test leader right here. The tag end, I'm going to pull that up to about 8 inches. I'm just going to tie a simple overhand knot or a granny knot, and I'm going to tighten that up to about 1/4 inch. I'm going to pinch that knot right there. Then I'm going to take the tag end, I'm going to put the tag end through the eye of the hook. I'm going to take that overhand knot and I'm going to bring it right down to the eye of the hook, and then I'm going to pinch everything. I'm going to pinch the eye of the hook, I'm going to pinch that overhand knot, and I'm also going to pinch the tag end, and I've got the main line pinched there too. See, I've just got it all pinched right there at the eye of the hook. Now I'm just going to tie a clinch knot. See how this line is coming across and is creating a second loop? So I've got the overhand knot loop, and then I'm going to have a loop from the clinch knot. So we're going to tie the clinch knot. I do 3 wraps. 1, 2, 3 wraps, and then I take the tag end and I push it through both of those loops, the clinch knot loop and the overhand knot loop. The tag end goes through that. I grab that with my fingers here. I'm still just kind of pinching everything together there. At this point, this is where I lubricate that knot. I take the tag end, I pull on the tag end, I pull on the main line, just pull them both down tight like that. Just cinch them down tight. Now what I often do is I'll take the tag end and I'll put the tag end in my teeth, and I'll pull on the tag end with my teeth and the main line here just to pull it down really good.
And then I like to take my fingers, I just hold the lure and I like to take my fingers and push this knot. Just push it down, make sure that all those coils are down nice and tight together, and then grab the lure, grab the main line, and pull on that knot. You guys, this is a solid knot. I have never had that loop knot fail me.
So the size of the loop knot is important. Now this is a pretty big loop knot. That's almost 3/4 of an inch from the tip of the lure to the actual knot. You don't want your knot to be that big, because what happens is that front hook on the lure can get hooked inside of the knot. And then once that happens, you just got a mess on your hands. The lure's not going to work properly. So ideally you want that knot to be about 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch away from the eye of the hook, and that'll be small enough so that that front hook can't get hooked inside of the loop knot, but it's large enough so that the lure has that flexibility to be able to walk back and forth better. So another thing I like about using the loop knot here is I can actually reel that fishing lure eye all the way up to the eye of the fishing rod, like that. Let's say I'm using this rod for my second rod. I've got it in the rod holder in the back of the kayak. I can keep that reeled up with tension like that. And let's say I come across some fish where they're feeding like crazy on topwater. I can just turn around, grab this rod, and it's ready to cast. And generally, because that loop knot it goes inside of the eye. The loop knot will go inside of the eye on the fishing rod. You can keep it. It'll stay in that tense position right there. And it has a tendency to not like come around here and get hooked up on the fishing rod. Yeah, generally it stays in this position when I'm moving around, and you can see I'm just bouncing it around. It's not getting hung up on the fishing rod there. So it's almost always ready to cast. So let's say I'm fishing and I happen to get hung up on a mangrove and I can't reach it and it's way back in there, but I can get my fishing rod back in there. So the reason I like the loop knot is because I can get that thing reeled up tight to the fishing eye, and then I can crank down on the reel and create that tension. See how there's that nice tension on the end of the lure, and then I can push the fishing rod back and forth and jerk it around and try and get that thing unhooked off of whatever structure it is that it's hooked on. Maybe it's hooked way up, back up underneath the dock and I can't reach it, or
this is not looking good here.
And yeah, being able to have that tension like that, you can see that lure is just about sticking straight out. That gives you that extra push-pull and leverage that you need with the fishing rod to be able to get that thing unhooked off of structure. So some people like to use the angler power clips when they're fishing. I've tried these with Topwater. They work really good for switching out baits quickly. So let's say I want to put on the Zara Spook lure. I've got that on there, but now you know what? I'm tired of fishing with that. Let's just take that off and let's quickly switch to the MirroOlure here. We can switch to a MirroOlure that quick within, without having to cut and retie the line. And the power clip gives you that, just like the uni knot, you have that flexibility at the eye of the lure where it moves around. But the problem that I have with the power clips when I'm topwater fishing, so I showed you on the uni knot how I can reel the knot all the way up inside of the fishing pole eye, and always have that lure ready to cast at any time on the second rod. Well, the problem with the power clip is that when your fishing rod is in this up position, this power clip allows so much flexibility here that the lure has a tendency to get hooked on the fishing rod like that. So if I'm just out, pedaling around in my kayak and fishing, and I reach back to grab that second rod and it's got that lure on it with the power clip, this thing has a tendency to get hooked on like that, and then I have to take time to get it unhooked. And I don't like to hook the treble hooks on the lower eyes of the fishing rod. I like to be able to just grab the rod and cast it instantly, because sometimes it's just a 2 or 3 second difference between catching a fish and not catching a fish when he's feeding right in front of you. So I find that the power clips, yeah, they're great for switching out lures, and they work good for, these surface type baits, walking the dog. But the reason I just have chosen not to use them when I'm topwater fishing is for that reason right there. Let's talk about the retrieval a little bit, okay? You cast that thing out there, you got that thing out there. Now on the retrieval, I always try and get my rod tip down close to the water when I'm retrieving. But if I can't get it close to the water, if I have to hold it up high, there might be some kind of structure in my way, or even if I have to hold it like midway, all three of those methods work with these walking baits, but I do like to have the rod lower. It just seems like I'm more efficient at twitching the bait, okay, whenever it's that way. And the thing about these surface walking baits is you cast them out there, and let's say that my hand is the surface walker and I'm going to retrieve it back to the camera, right? It lands in the water. I twitch the rod and that lure goes this way. I twitch the rod again and the lure goes that way. I twitch the rod again and the lure goes that way. These walking baits, they're automatic. All you have to do is twitch the rod. You don't have to twitch the rod to the left and then twitch to the right. No. All you have to do is just keep twitching your rod. Just get it out there and just keep twitching it. And as you twitch, it just jerks that bait back and forth, and that thing just walks through the water. An important thing about when you're retrieving these topwater lures is you'll get it up close to the structure, you'll be retrieving it, and after you get away from the structure, you think, okay, well, I'm far away from the structure, they're probably not going to hit it. But a lot of times I will just keep working that lure, all the way back to the kayak or wherever it is that I'm fishing from, because sometimes those fish will just be following it. They'll just follow it, and they'll hit it right in front of the boat. Now, other times, like I had an instant, I'll show you a clip here in a moment, where I actually made a bad cast. It fell way short of the structure that I was casting at, and I just started reeling the lure in. And yeah, always be ready, because let me show you the clip of what happened whenever I was just reeling the lure in really fast so that I could recast it closer to the structure.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
So I actually lost two big fish in that little area right there where I hooked into that big one. Yeah, they both broke me off. So the next day when I went back there, I rigged up with 25-pound test, 40 and 60-pound test monofilament leader. When I got in that really tight cove area, I switched over to the 60-pound test. And I actually caught a couple snook in there using the 60-pound test. So I'm considering, you guys, just going to 40-pound test all of the time when I'm topwater fishing in those areas, because there's just so much structure. I've only lost a couple of fish. There's two big fish. Actually, that's the third. I lost 3 big fish on topwater. They were just way too big to handle with the 4,000 size reel and the 25-pound test leader. But that's been over like 4 or 5 months now. 3 fish out of 150 that I've caught. So, and generally what happens with these topwater lures, they get one hook on the outside of the mouth, and another hook will hook them like somewhere in the breast area or on the gill cover. They don't actually get the hook in their gills. I can't recall having one get a hook actually in their gills. They just don't get hooked in the gills with these topwater lures. I don't know why. So, yeah, using the 25-pound test leader, I don't tend to get, the leader doesn't get frayed by the fish's teeth, because they just don't get those lures way down inside of their mouth. I mean, I've caught like, a couple hundred snook here in the past 5 months on topwater lures. And yeah, they're always hooked on the outside of the mouth. I don't know. Yeah. I think what happens is when they hit those lures, it's the pressure of their jaws. They're actually trying to kill their prey, So it's not like they're sucking it in, okay? I think what they're doing is they come up and they do that pressure with their jaws. They go bam, and they try and just like kill that bait whenever they're hitting it. And I think that's why they get hooked on the outside of the mouth often, rather than having that lure way down inside. That's my theory anyway. All right, well, moving on. So when I'm out there fishing topwater, I generally am fishing around structure, docks, seawalls, and mangroves. Periodically I'll make casts on the flats, but I'm just not much of a flats fisherman yet. Anyway, you guys, I tend to cast around the structure a lot. But a couple times I've just done some random casts out on the flats, and I caught a snook one morning and stuff. But I really believe that the snook, these fish like to hang around really tight structure, because the dolphins like to feed on these snook, and so they like to, these snook just get right up in those pilings and along the seawalls, and they get tucked back up into the mangroves. It's a very safe place for them, and also that's the place where all the bait fish hang out. So the bigger fish are going to be hanging out where the bait fish are at. So yeah, I'm generally topwater fishing around some type of structure, so it's really important to make sure that you get out there and you fish a lot, you guys.
You fish a lot so that you get a lot of casting practice in, all right? It's so important that when I cast that lure, it's so important that that lure lands right within like a couple of inches of the seawall, or it lands right up next to the piling, or it lands right on the edge of the mangrove line that I'm fishing, or whatever other structure. I want to get that lure right up next to that area. Sometimes when I'm casting along seawalls, I can actually hear that lure just barely hit the seawall. And I'm like, oh, that was the perfect cast, you know, just right up along the edge of the seawall. Sometimes I'll actually get parallel with the seawall, and I'll cast down the seawall edge, and I'll work that lure right down along the edge of the seawall.
Look at that. Look at that.
The other thing about fishing around structure, or all of this fishing that I'm doing, is that the direction of the tide is really important. Okay, these fish that I'm fishing for, they're predatory fish, right? They are generally laying in the water facing into the tide. They're waiting for that bait to come to them. And they're just like, they're constantly moving back. As that tide is coming in this direction, those fish are just moving back and forth, and they're looking for that bait to come to them. And when they see that bait coming along, they will shoot out from their structure and they'll grab that bait.
All the hits that I've had, the snook are hanging right on the front of the dock. They're probably just hanging right back there waiting for the bait to come to them. They were just popping right up in there.
So the direction of the tide is important when you're topwater fishing, is really important. Now I have some clips here I'm going to show you where the tide was actually, there was a dock here and the tide was moving in this direction, and there was a snook that had been laying underneath that dock, and he was hitting that topwater a couple different times. Let me show you these clips, you guys, and then we're going to talk about that a little bit.
Current's moving that way, and I just want the current to get that lure enough where I can just run it right along the edge of that dock. One I can see. Come on, buddy. Get it, man. Get it. There he is.
So you notice in that clip how I would cast it up there, and then I would let the current just pull that lure back towards the dock, and then I was working the lure really slow right along the edge of the dock, and as it was pull away from the dock, I would just stop the lure and let the current just pull it right back up on the edge of the dock again. Now there's something about when you're topwater fishing, it's important to keep casting back in that area whenever you get a strike. Sometimes, I mean, sometimes I get 6 to 7 hits before I actually catch the fish. It's crazy. It's like, I don't know if they're smacking at it with their tail or if they're hitting it and missing or whatever, but sometimes you just keep throwing it back up there and throwing it back up there and throwing it back up there until finally they'll get on that lure and you get hooked up with them. I think it's really important, you guys, anytime that I do some type of tutorial, that I back it up with actual video footage, you know, of me catching fish. So I'm going to put links in the description area. There's going to be plenty of videos down there, topwater fish catching action for you guys to watch. Please take time to watch them if you haven't seen them. Love topwater fishing. I'm encouraging you guys, get out there and try some topwater fishing. I'll put links in the description area to topwater lures and line and braid and reels and rods and all kinds of stuff that I use for topwater fishing, those angular power clips. And yeah, you guys just give it a try. You'll become addicted to topwater fishing like I'm addicted. I generally like to do topwater fishing right at daylight for the first couple of hours until the sun gets really, really high up in the air. All right, well, everybody get out there and go fishing. Thumbs up or appreciated, and life is fun. Live it. See ya.